Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another day of the KCAA, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority's stakeholder engagement on the draft Civil Aviation Regulations 2021. As we start this day, I'll ask one of my colleagues, Mary Keter, who's our manager Airworthiness, to commit this day in prayer. Mary, you can click on participate and give us today's prayer.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence and the team at large. Let's pray. Father, we come to you this morning, Lord, King of Glory. We thank you for another wonderful day that you have made, O Lord. Today, we are coming before you, both the KCAA and the industry stakeholders, Father, to discuss this worthy event today of stakeholder meeting on Civil Aviation Regulations 2021. And so, Lord, we ask you that even as we discuss and deliberate as a team, that, Lord, you may give us solutions that will build this country and work as a team and as one family. We thank you and we bless you. In Jesus Christ, I do pray. Amen. Thank you. I want to pass this back to Mr. Amkono. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, for the prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, as we start this day, just to give us an overview of what we expect. First, this is the third day of our stakeholder engagement meeting. On the first day, on Monday 14th, we went through the personnel licensing regulations, operation of aircraft, air operator certification administration regulations, safety management regulations, and approved training organization regulations. Yesterday, we had operation of aircraft, commercial air transport, aeroplanes, instrument and equipment, operation of aircraft, general aviation, helicopter operations, and licensing of air services regulations. So today we'll have a session in the morning and in the afternoon as the first 2 days. We've dedicated the morning session to 2 sets of regulation. We will be dealing with draft civil aviation airworthiness regulations. I anticipate that these would be of interest to most of our air operators and maintenance organizations. These will be followed by approved maintenance organization regulations closely related to the airworthiness regulations. At 2 o'clock, we expect to go into the third session of the day where we will be discussing aircraft nationality and registration marks regulations, closely followed by carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation regulations at 3 p.m. And at 4 p.m., we expect to close the day with 2 sets of regulations. That is the certification of air navigation service providers regulations and the aeronautical information services regulations. So, ladies and gentlemen, just like yesterday, and just to put us into perspective, those who would like to join this session, you can access the current session on the KCAA website. Then you can go to the regulations where we have draft regulations. After that, you can click on the access the site, and if you have registered, you can directly go to the session room. I'll shortly be posting these instructions in the Ask the Question box just to assist those who will have a bit of a challenge. However, of the regulations we've discussed and those that we are going to discuss today, if you have any idea or any issues that you want to raise with us, our email addresses remain open: kcas2021, kcas2021 at kcaa.or.ke. We continue to receive written submissions on the regulations that we have already discussed so that we can better improve the regulations. Again, as we continue the day, I would like to advise you that those who would like to ask a verbal question, to make a verbal intervention, you just indicate your interest to do that in the Ask Question button on the bottom right corner of your screen, and we will allow you an opportunity to do that after the presentations have been done and we are in the questions and answer session. So to start us off this morning, we are going to go through the airworthiness regulations, and I'll invite my colleague who is going to make that presentation to commence presentation and take us through the matrix first of that regulation, what has been amended, followed by written submissions already received, and then we'll answer the questions you'll have asked in the Ask Your Question, and then open the floor for a dialogue where you can be able to intervene or clarify some of the questions on the table. So
okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence Amkono and the team. Once again, I want to welcome all stakeholders to this forum today. As Amkono has explained, we will actually go straight to the presentation on the matrix. This will display the changes that have come up about due to ICAO Annex 8 amendments that KCA has adopted and has made these amendments and indicated this on a matrix that I'm going to share with you this morning. We will look at it, and after which we will have one of our team leaders and a team member here who will be presenting your comments and the recommendations that we have already received towards these changes that have been introduced in airworthiness regulations. So on your screen, I'm going to post the airworthiness regulations changes that have come on that matrix. I hope you can see it clearly. And item number 1 on our matrix is what we call interpretations. Now, item number 1 is aircraft. This we have redefined as per the Annex 8 requirement. And the next change here is approved maintenance organization, which we have also redefined as per the Annex requirement. The third one is a new one, which is an article also defined in airworthiness regulations. This was found initially in the AMO regulations alone, but we find the use of articles in airworthiness regulations. We have the certificate of release to service, which was there in the 2018 regulations, and the annex has introduced what we call a maintenance release, again has been defined in this matrix. Then we have the definition of an engine. We have added the rotor as per the annex. And then on maintenance, there is a new definition on what maintenance means. The next part that has a broad change is on a certificate of release to service, which you have mentioned. It is a release. And then we have a major modification, which has also been redefined by ICAO in the annex. We also have modification and major modes, which have been redefined again, and we have given you on the matrix the specific annex reference where we got the text. Then the next slide, that is number 10, is definition of power plant. It remains the same as per 2018, 2021. However, in 2018, we had a space between the power and the plant. So as per the annex, it is one word, which we have again indicated there. Then the prescription, which was defined in the AMO regulation 2018, has now been deleted to, we have deleted the word prescribed in the regulations and left it as is in the 2021 regulations now. And then the next item there is repairs to the aircraft. We have also put the new definition as per ICAO and deleted some content to comply with Annex 8 Part 1. Then we have a state of manufacture, which we have also deleted some content and added some. We have the scope of approval, which is a new definition. Initially, we talked about specific operating provisions, which comes with AMO certificate, but now we have a new definition, which is the scope of approval, also defined. Then we have the type certificate, which we have also amended to include the engines and the propellers, as defined by ICAO in its annex number 8. Then regulation number 3, there was also a small change where we have always referred to this regulation applying to Kenyan registered aircraft wherever operated. But now, as per ICAO, it is the aircraft, the engines, the propellers, and all associated parts of the aircraft. Then item number 3, again, regulation 3.2, we have introduced something new that is also in ICAO Annex 8, Part 2, as shown on that. Then under Part 2 of the 2018 regulations, we have changed the title to Certification of Aircraft and Aeronautical Products. This is again to comply with Annex 8, Part 2. And then regulation number 4, we have something new introduced where we are also aligning with ICAO Annex, where we say that there is no person who shall operate an aircraft or apply for registration of an aircraft in unless that aircraft and aeronautical products therein have received a TC from the state of design and production approval from the state of manufacture, as we have highlighted in yellow. Then to regulation number 4, we have also changed the numbering because of the new introductions up there. Then regulation number 6, this is the issuance of supplemental type certificate. We have only changed the marginal notes as shown there in the matrix. And then regulation number 7, it goes on to the following page where we have just expound on the applicant's requirements during application for COV, who we say that the applicant is legally entitled to the aircraft, or a written notice is submitted to the authority identifying the person making the application, or in case of a body corporate, a written notice identifying an officer of the body corporate and the address who may be served with the documents including the COV. This one has been added here because if you look at nationality mark regulations, we are looking at the person applying specifically for COV of an aircraft, whether it is issuance or renewal. So we will need somebody who is recognized by the aircraft owner or the aircraft owner. And then matrix regulation number 7.2, we have added something small, which is manner specified as shown there. Then regulation number 8 did not address the applicable standards in ICAO Annex 8, Part 3.3, and we have now added that part. Then when you go to regulation number 9, the regulation also did not address applicable standards of ICAO Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 3.3. So we have added more text to transpose the provisions of the Annex 8, Chapter 3.3, where we have just introduced a standard airworthiness certificate and defined it as is in the annex. And then regulation number 10, we have amended the text for clarity as shown in this column number 4 of regulation number 10. Then we have regulation number 11 was inconsistent with regulation number 9, and we have now deleted the word restricted COV so that there is consistency. And then we have regulation number 12 is regulation did not address applicable standard on the annex number 8, chapter 3. So we have also amended that part to have a period of validity of 24 months, provided that the owner operator shall ensure that the continuing airworthiness of the aircraft is determined by a periodical inspection at appropriate intervals, having regard to lapse of time and type of service, or alternatively by means of a system acceptable to the authority. So this has seen a change in the validity period of the COV, which normally is 12 months, and now we are adopting 24 months. In ICAO Doc 9760, we have been given 4 options. One of them is 1 year. We were at 12 months, which is one year. There is the 2 years, which we have now adopted as 24 months. And then there is an option of 36 months by ICAO, and there is an option of non-expiring validity of a COV. So for now, we have taken 24 months. This is the change which is coming as recommended in this regulation. Then regulation number 12 is we have that the regulation does not address applicable standard again. This is to do with special flight permits. Over time and through industry input, then we have realized that the time frames was never specified for the special flight permit, but through practice, KCA has been giving 14 days for this document validity period. But now this regulation, we recognize the challenges the industry are going through. And so we have extended this period of validity to 30 days as amended here and has a recommendation to the industry. Then we have regulation number 12, sub-regulation number 5. We have only deleted the word prescribed and inserted the word specified. Then in regulation number 14.2, we have the applicant submission of export COV shall be valid for 45 days from the date of issue. This through practice and day-to-day operations in the department and authority at large. Then we looked at 45 days as less days from the time the aircraft is registered into the country and from the time the operator applies for COV. Most of the time 45 days will have lapsed. And so there is a recommendation here that we are amending this particular regulation to add from 45 days to 90 days to give ample time to the industry to comply with the regulation. And then regulation number 14 is a new one, and this is requirement of Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 3.2.4, where when an aircraft possesses a valid COV issued by another contracting state, the authority, when issuing its COV, may consider the previous certificate of airworthiness as satisfactory evidence in whole or in part that the aircraft complies with the applicable regulations. Then the next regulation, number 14, there was a change because of the introduction of ICAO Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 3, where the different categories of COVs have been listed there. And of key is categories of standard COV shall include commercial, which has always been there, passengers, commercial, which has always been there for cargo, general aviation, aerial work. But now there is the word acrobatic, which has not been there before. We also have manned free balloons. This is a new thing coming. And then under the second category, which is a new one, is special airworthiness certificate. So we will have standard certificate of airworthiness, and we have a special airworthiness certificate. Under special, we will have the restricted, the experimentals, and tethered balloons. So this is a new concept. And then regulation number 14 still expounds on the acrobatic, the manned free balloon, the restricted and experimental and tethered balloons. Then regulation number 16 is the issuance of a restricted certificate of airworthiness. Now, this restricted certificate of airworthiness now falls under the new category of special COV. So we have only changed the marginal notes in the regulations. And then 16, sub-regulation 1, also makes reference to the special certificate of airworthiness, which we have indicated up there under the categories, the new categories. Again, 17, we are again referring to the special certificate of airworthiness, which we have inserted to align with the new categorizations of COV. Still, regulation number 17, sub-regulation 1, paragraph D, we have added fairing under the requirements of, that is for special flight permits on regulation number 17. This is to comply with Annex 8, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and this is Annex 8, Part 2 requirement. Again, regulation number 17, sub-regulation 1, where we had evacuating aircraft from areas of impending danger, and we have added force majeure. And this one is a requirement by the Annex 8 and Part 2, Chapter 3. Still under regulation number 17, the whole of it talks about special flight permit. And under 17G, we have introduced flight after a modification or during a process of applying for an STC. That's a new thing which has come on board. And then 17, sub-regulation 2, paragraph alpha A, is a duly filled application form specified by the authority. This is what we are going to specify. and a certificate of registration and a valid CO certificate of insurance as requirements for application for a special flight permit. Then certificate of fitness for flight signed by authorized person, and E, license and certificates of qualified crew required to operate the aircraft or any other requirement requested by the authority. So this is new to the regulations. We had it in the application form initially. So, and then exports certificate of airworthiness is the next, which we are now changing the marginal notes to read airworthiness approval for export as per ICAO Doc 9760 Part 3, Chapter 6.1. Then we have regulation number 18.2, where we talk about the certificate of airworthiness classification. This is export certificate of airworthiness classification, which initially we had class 1, which is the aircraft itself. We had class 2, which is major component, and we had class 3, any product or components. But now we have adopted the new nomenclature as per ICAO Doc 9760 of the third schedule to delete the classes which were required previously in ICAO Doc 9760 third schedule, third edition, and now introduce what is new in ICAO Doc 9760 fourth edition. So we have the new titles pasted there. And then regulation number 18, the use of the word prescribed has now been changed to the word specified by the authority. Then again on 18, under export COV, we have deleted regulation 18.4a to F text, which was required previously in ICAO Doc 9760 first edition, part 1, and now we have inserted new text, which regulation 18.4a will read that the authority shall issue an export COV if the aircraft continues to meet the type certification, airworthiness, and the requirements of the authority. Now, the exports COV may attest compliance with the requirements of the importing state and the list applicable exceptions to those requirements. The exports COV shall contain information and format specified in the fifth schedule to these regulations. And then regulation number 19 is conditions on the special flight permits. Initially, we had conditions listed, but we have changed the text to read limitations and conditions as per ICAO Doc 9760, Chapter 5.31. Then we have regulation number 19, where a person shall not fly an aircraft on special flight permit unless that person has complied with conditions of these regulations. We've added the word limit. So there are limitations indicated by ICAO in its ICAO Doc 9760. Then regulation number 19 again, this is initially the operator shall inform the state on the condition of the aircraft and intended flight, and the operator must obtain their consent. ICAO Doc 9760 has now introduced 19.3 text, which if the flight involves operations over states other than the state of registry, the air operator of the aircraft should obtain the necessary overfly authorizations from the respective authorities of each of those states prior to undertaking the flight. Then still on regulation number 19, sub-regulation number 5, we have introduced a small word there, which is the route of the flight as per ICAO Doc 9760 requirements. Then 19.6 is something new from ICAO Doc 9760, Chapter 5.3.4, where now the authority may inspect the aircraft to confirm its airworthiness status. That is before issuance of export COV. That's an element that has been added. Then regulation number 20 is there is a text which has also been added, where initially we had a person shall not fly an aircraft for the purpose of flight testing after repair, modification, or maintenance, unless that aircraft has been issued with a certificate of fitness for flight containing a maintenance endorsement statement. And then now we say, so long as the certificate of airworthiness of the aircraft is current. This, we have noted an anomaly there on our matrix, and I think this we will look at it, because it doesn't have to be current. The COV of the aircraft doesn't have to be current for you to have a special flight permit. Then we move to the next regulation, number 20, sub-regulation 3, a certificate of fitness for flight requirements. We have amended by deleting purpose of allowing the aircraft to be ferried. Then regulation number 20, sub-regulation 5, it is a new thing. And this one is best practice. 25, we've added, if the original airworthiness condition of the aircraft is affected during the period of validity of the certificate, no, the certificate shall be reissued. Then the marginal notes on regulation number 20. Sorry, there is 20 sub-regulation 6. This is a new one, where we have introduced that a certificate of fitness for flight shall be in a format prescribed by the authority. And then the next, after 20, we have marginal notes, which we have added that continued airworthiness of aircraft and aircraft components has now been changed to airworthiness of aircraft and aeronautical components as per ICAO doc. And then 21.1, we have introduced maintenance release on 21.1C, where we had a certificate of release to service. Now we have a maintenance release. Then regulation number 21, in the event that there are open discrepancies, the certificate of release to service, that was in regulation 2018. Our proposal now is to refer to maintenance release, which is an ICAO Annex 8 requirement. And then uncorrected maintenance, for which temporary leave is provided in the MEL or other technical documents. That one again is we have introduced text there. And 21 sub-regulation 3, the operator of the aeroplane over 5,700 kilograms has been introduced and maintain a helicopter of over 3,175 kilograms maximum mass. This we have taken from ICAO Doc 9760 and the Annex 8. Then Regulation 23, we have inserted some text to comply with Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 4.2.3.3. And this one, 23.1, subparagraph I, says it will ensure that sensitive aviation security information is not transmitted when distributing mandatory continuing airworthiness information. Now, in Regulation 23, we have given a remark that because of deletion of Regulation 23, Sub-Regulation 2, Regulation 23, Sub-Regulation 4, 5, 6, and 7 becomes 23, 4, 5, 6, and 7 respectively. So that one, there is a shift in numbering. And then Regulation number 24, we have only introduced the word maintenance release as opposed to using certificate of release to service. And then Regulation 24, we have a new regulation here to comply with Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 3.4, where we are saying in 24 Delta that the aircraft is provided with a flight manual, placards, or other documents stating the approved limitations within which the aircraft is considered airworthy, as defined by the appropriate airworthiness requirements, and additional instructions and information necessary for the safe operation of the aircraft. Then 25, we have introduced some text to comply with Annex 8, Part 3A, Chapter 8.3, by adding a small statement there in yellow, which is, or operate at the time of an emergency shall be reliable and readily accessible. And then 26 is new text to comply with Annex 8, Chapter 4.2.4, where we say the authority shall establish in respect of aeroplanes over 5,700 kilograms and helicopters over 3,175 maximum certificated takeoff mass, the type of information that is to be reported by operators and maintenance organizations, including procedures for reporting this information. This is in compliance with the ICAO standard. And then 26 in yellow, we have something small added, or any other reason. This is engine shut down during flight because of flame out or any other reason. Then 26, we have also introduced something in 26.3, where we say a report required under this regulation shall be made and submitted to the authority and equipment manufacturer and design organization. This is the requirement of Annex 8, Chapter 4.2.3. And then 26.2c is a new regulation again to comply with the standard, where it says shall show evidence of submission of communication report to the manufacturer and design organization. Then 26 is just the numbering, where we have also replaced the shall and may in line with industry best practice. And the regulation numbers have changed from 26.3 to 26.4 respectively. Now 28.2 is a typo which we have corrected. In 2018 regulation, it said Alame who may. It was a typo, and we have deleted and said a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer may approve, not who may. Then 28 again, Charlie, that is C, is we have introduced the word schedule of approval issued by the authority, as opposed to the use of specific operating provisions, which was used in 2018 regulations. And then regulation 28, sub-regulation 2, paragraph D, we have also introduced a new regulation to comply with Annex 6, Part 1, 2, 3, Chapter. Then inserted regulation 28.2D, which says an AOC holder may approve aircraft and aeronautical products for return to service as specified by the authority. And then 29, sub-regulation 2, paragraph Charlie, is a new regulation to comply with Annex 6, Chapter, Part 1, 2, and 3, where it says an AOC holder may perform the required inspections of the aircraft and aeronautical products in accordance with specifications issued by the authority. And then 39.1, we have deleted the word certificate of release to service and replaced it with maintenance release. Again, it applies to 39, 39.1, 39.2, where we have replaced certificate of release to service with maintenance release. And then 41, regulation 41, sub-regulation 1, we have also amended by replacing logbooks with aircraft continuing airworthiness records. Then sub-regulation 41, regulation 1, paragraph D, we have a new regulation which we have inserted, the log cards for any service life limited components as appropriate. That's still regulation 41. We are still talking about the logbooks and associated records shall be retained. And then 42, we have a regulation here where we've added in 42 sub-regulation 1, paragraph A. In 2018, it says that a description or reference to data acceptable to the authority of work performed. But we have added a statement after work performed, including one, that is subparagraph 1, is the total time in service, that is hours, calendar time, and cycles as appropriate of the aircraft and all life-limited components. And item number 2 is the current status of compliance with all mandatory continuing airworthiness information. And subparagraph 3, we have appropriate details of modifications and repairs. And then subparagraph 4 is time in service, hours, calendar time, cycles as appropriate since last overhaul of the aircraft or its components subject to a mandatory overhaul life. And subparagraph 5 is the current status of the aircraft's compliance with the maintenance program and the detailed maintenance records. to show that all requirements for signing of a maintenance release have been met. Then we have Regulation 43 is the content, form, disposition of records. We have only changed the marginal notes and swapped Regulation 45 and 44 for the flow of the subject. Then 45 is approval for return to service. This one we have again swapped 44 and 45. And then on the third schedule, we have inserted a third schedule into these regulations where we have the technical logbook details required by AOC Regulation 65. And then we also have the fourth schedule inserted to the regulations, which was not there before. Now, that is basically it on the changes on airworthiness regulations. In that matrix, we recognize that there is a lot that has been put in place by the team. And today we have also received a number of comments from you, the industry players. We have also received recommendations on how we can improve some of the existing regulations in airworthiness. And to this end, I want to invite one of my colleagues to answer a few of questions that you have asked. That is on email. We received your comments on email, and we have looked at them as a team. And my colleague, Mr. Timothy Rotich, will be the one to handle this part. And then we can also see that you are sending us questions online. We appreciate. We will also handle this in the next session. Thank you very much. I take it over to Mr. Timothy Rotich. I can see among the questions here that we are receiving from Tony Malala, you say on regulation, I think it should have been regulation 27, sub-regulation 6. After a qualified, trained, and suitably assessed and licensed staff, stroke mechanic has been authorized under the AMO training program, he or she could be utilized to perform maintenance also under supervision of a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer. This is okay, Tony. We have heard you. And we have that part in airworthiness regulations, which we did not touch, on who can perform maintenance and who can sign the certificate of release to service in the 2018. And some of these people who perform maintenance must be supervised by a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer. So these people you have mentioned here, the unlicensed mechanic, will fall in that cadre. We have not looked at the regulation now because we did not introduce any change on that one, but your comment is well taken. We will also relook at it. Thank you. Mr. Rotich, kindly take the stage.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm here to comment on the stakeholders' comments that we've received. One, I acknowledge receiving comments from one Mr. Tony Malala. He provided several issues. One of the items was under Regulation 4, Sub-Regulation 2. He commented whether there will, this states that notwithstanding requirements of Sub-Regulation 1, the authority may accept for registration a 9-type certificated aircraft and aeronautical products in a manner prescribed by the authority. So his comment was, will there be an advisory circular that advises stakeholders on the manner prescribed by the authority for acceptance for registration of non-type certificated aircraft? The answer is yes. The authority shall issue adequate guidance material to the industry in this regard. The next regulation that he raised an issue was Regulation 7, Sub-Regulation 2, which states that an applicant for a certificate of airworthiness shall apply on a form and a manner prescribed specified by the authority. So he noted that there needs to be guidance on the advisory circular that expounds on what form. There is an AC for the C of A application in place. So it will it shall be amended and issued to the industry. Another comment was on Regulation 8, Sub-Regulation 4. It was quite a long. Some of the items I can see, Mr. Tony, you've also highlighted back here on the question answers session. So on this Regulation 16, Sub-Regulation 1, the regulation states that the authority may issue a special certificate of airworthiness to a non-type certificated aircraft with specific operating limitation. So your recommendation was that the authority, through advisory circular, if not regulation, should clarify the operating limitations to avoid misinterpretation, especially for kits, planes, home-built aircraft that are not type certificated. Appropriate TGM/AMCs should be provided for clear evaluation of such a case. So this is noted, Tony, and this shall be provided. The other comment was on Regulation 17 sub 2, which says the authority shall issue a special flight permit if the applicant submits a duly filled application form specified by the authority. So Tony was asking, how can we get access to this application form? Authority to provide the form mentioned in the regulation as reviewed the draft. So the form will definitely be availed to the stakeholders at the appropriate time for uniformity purposes in the application. So the other comment was Regulation 20, Sub-Regulation 2, which I can see had been previously addressed by my colleague, Mr. Lumutu, on the question section. However, you should note that we have the aircraft notices. The aircraft notices, specifically notice A3, deals with the responsibilities of the certifying personnel. These notices will be amended once these regulations are in place, so to reflect the current changes in the regulation. They'll therefore offer further guidance. The other comment you issued was on Regulation 24 regarding the certificate of fitness. The regulation states, your comment was that Regulation 20, Sub-Regulation 4, a certificate of fitness for flight may be used as a basis of flight tests of an aircraft after repair, modification, or maintenance, as long as the aircraft does not make international flight and is not, for the purposes of these regulations, a certificate of airworthiness. Your question was, what if the aircraft is maintained at an AMO that is at a different state? Once maintenance is complete and a certificate of fitness for flight issued, how is the aircraft meant to fly across borders? For your information, the certificate of fitness for flight cannot be used as a standalone document when you're flying across borders. That's a limitation. So if it doesn't have a certificate of airworthiness, you would request for issue of a special flight permit to fly that aircraft. The other comment was on Regulation 20, Sub-Regulation 6, on the same certificate of fitness for flight. It shall be in a format prescribed by the authority. So your comment is that there is no prescribed format that the authority has provided. Actually, as I said earlier on, we have aircraft notices. If you go specifically to aircraft notice A5, you've been given the format and even the wordings for the certificate of fitness for flight. So this will be also amended. The last document that is there in notice A5 was dated June 2009. However, this will be adequately amended once these regulations are in place. There are other several comments on Regulation 27, which has been answered by my manager here, the 27.6, about the lane performing or supervising maintenance. This one has been adequately answered. So Regulation 29, persons authorized to perform inspections. Your recommendation says that authority to classify the different types of inspection carried out, duplicate, schedule, and schedule defect. and who is authorized to carry out each and every one of them. And also another recommendation, authority to allow license without type rating maintenance personnel to perform duplicate inspection after internal training and assessment on the task as per Civil Aviation AMO Regulation 24. You will note that, as I stated earlier, we have aircraft notice A3, which is in place. It guides on the persons who are responsible to certify different types of tasks carried out on the aircraft. So this notice A3 shall be amended to comply with these new regulations, and it will continue offering guidance to the industry on who would be able to certify and perform maintenance on different tasks. We have also received comments from one Anyango Otieno regarding several regulation 16, which recommendation is just once the authority may clarify the operating limitations to avoid misinterpretation for both kit planes. That's the same comment given by Malala earlier on. Another concern is regulation 17, sub-regulation 2, certificate of fitness for flight, signed by unauthorized personnel. A recommendation, authority should clarify on who is authorized to sign off fitness for flight. This one is captured under regulation 20, and also the notice A3 would be able to give guidance on who would be certifying this particular documentation. Also, there was a comment, Anyango Otieno, you also posted on the question session on limitation and conditions, which has been amended. Your recommendation is to include limitation and condition on the special flight permit. This one is noted and shall be considered. Regulation 19, subregulation 2. Your comments are equally noted on that, shall be considered. Regulation, the other ones are under regulation 20. Regulation 20 talks about the certificate of fitness, which I've just addressed with the same question coming from Tony Malala. And regulation 27, there was a comment on regulation 27, sub-regulation 6. It says, actually, this is the same question that was given by Tony Malala about the restriction of the lame from performing the maintenance. This was answered by Madam Mary Keter. Thank you very much, Tiano Nyango, for your comments. The other comments which we also received are from Frederick Agrioport. The comments and observation are quite key. This we noted that some of these items were out of the sections that we amended. Therefore, they are very good inputs, which we need to amend. Some typos, some omissions, and commission caused by the fact that we've changed several items, positions, and there have been typos. We acknowledge all your comments under regulation 8, 11, 14. All these comments have been captured and will be actioned accordingly. Under regulation 15, also you've given us a comment, which will be considered. Thank you much for your comment. And regulation 24, we also had several omissions in the draft as by movement of the different items that were highlighted. Regulation 40 on the technical logbook. Yeah, we noted that in the draft we did not transpose We did not change the certificate of release to service to the maintenance release. That one has been adequately noted and addressed. The main comment here would be the additional comment you made under Regulation 21. You stated that the addition of a statement, so long as the certificate of airworthiness of the aircraft is current. This is with regards to the certificate of fitness for flight. Madam Mary, when she was carrying out the presentation, she noted that we've already taken this into place, and it shall be considered because it is true, contrary to the spirit and the purpose of the certificate of fitness for flight. Regulation 24, you noted that the proposed amendment in highlights is to differentiate the requirements for the commercial categories from the general aviation. Yeah, we've noted your comment on that, and we shall adequately consider it. All right, we got a comment from Evans Kamau Kihara, representing Kenya Airways. This is a comment just noting that Airworthiness Regulation 16, the COV validity of 24 months is much appreciated. Thank you very much, Evans. So these were the comments that were submitted electronically through the email address that was provided. And we appreciate your comments, and we will take them on board, deliberate on them, and effect them as necessary. So we're going through several comments. We can see there are several questions and answers which have been posted on the wall. One Douglas Karoki. I'll give it back to the moderator for moderation.
Okay. Thank you again. Once again, I want to thank my colleague Timothy Rotich for answering those questions from the industry. There is one question from Ronnie Selempo. This is from Facebook, watching us from Facebook. Thank you, Ronnie. You have brought in a question that we talked to you about the home-built aircraft. These are aircraft that are non-type certificated, and these aircraft are normally amateur-built or normally called kit planes. And these aircraft are not regulated by most states in the world. But in Kenya, as is today, in 2018 regulations, these home-built aircraft have been treated in airworthiness regulations like any other type certificated aircraft. But when you look at the 2021 proposed regulations around regulation number 4, when I was presenting the matrix, we have introduced specifically the element of non-type certificated aircraft, which will include all the home-built. And under certificates of airworthiness, we have also introduced a special type of certificate of airworthiness, where this particular group of aircraft will be where these aircrafts will be issued that special certificate of airworthiness. It means once we introduce this non-type certificated aircraft COV requirements, then it will give us an opportunity as an authority to come up with technical guidance materials, amendments on the already existing, to handle them separately from the way we have been handling them. So these are aircraft that are not regulatable. They are for sports, sometimes experimental, and they are acrobatic, as we have mentioned in the regulations. Thank you, Ronnie. I hope I've answered your question. Then we have on the question pen, we have Mr. Neville Ford, who asked a question on hot air balloon and the logbooks that you are required to fill. Neville Ford says, what type of logbooks should the hot air balloon organizations use to record aircraft and maintenance data? At the moment, Neville Ford, you will continue filling the aircraft logbooks that you have always been filling, which are normally purchased from the authority. However, with this amendment of the regulations, we will for sure do a guidance material to the industry on exactly how balloons should be treated going forward. That is with regards to records and maintenance of aircraft balloons. Then we have Wesley Kirui. Can you clarify on the term replacing of specific operating provisions? Is it the scope of approval or the schedule of approval? It is the scope of approval. And then we have Wesley Kirui again. It's clear that in KCAS 2021, that CRS has been replaced by maintenance release. However, there is a definition for the certificate of release to service. Is CRS still being used anywhere? No, we will not continue using certificate of release to service. This is a good observation. If it still exists in our interpretation page, for sure we'll revisit and make those changes. And then Neville Ford talks about maintenance of hot air balloons. This one, we have talked about it. This is something going to come, guidance to the industry on how balloons will be maintained. And then there is Douglas Karoki. Can I have 5 minutes live concerns licensing on licensed aircraft? This one, I'll give it back to our moderator, Mr. Mkono. I think there is Ali Omar says, good morning. Can we have a definition of minor modification? Yes, Ali Omar, this definition has been defined by Q. We will also consider it, but you realize we did not add it on our interpretation page on airworthiness regulations because it has not been used extensively in the text. So we will relook at this, but the definition has already been done by Q. We will just pick the text as is and add to the regulation if it is missing. Okay, there is Anyango Otieno. Handling kit planes, that is stroke home-built aircraft, as a separate category of aircraft when issuing COV is welcomed. Hopefully, it will encourage creativity and growth within general aviation. That is true, Anyango, and we have recognized this because it's been a challenge for many years handling home-built aircraft and the type certificated aircrafts, putting them together. So now with these 2021 regulations, we are going to separate them. I hand over the floor to Mr. Lawrence Amkono. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have had an extensive provision of the details that have gone into these regulations. I know there's a question from Ali Omar regarding Regulation 7.1 to include lessee, stroke operator as one of the people with the strength to apply. My colleagues will consider that. But before we consider that, we have a request for the stage by Douglas. Douglas Karoki, if you are able, please click on your participate button to allow you to make your intervention as requested. Douglas Karoki.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
My concerns for I had raised several issues in the first day under the personnel licensing, but the reply that came back was that colleagues from the Airworthiness will deal with the issues that I wanted clarity on. It concerns the licensing of aircraft maintenance engineers in particular. On the new regulation, I think there's as has been expressed by a few of the colleagues, there's the operation of hot air balloon. So we need maybe some guidance on the licensing of the same or a category for hot air balloon maintenance. I think there is also a category for large aircraft like base maintenance, where we have sea engineers. That category, I think, is not covered in this current personnel licensing regulation. And the other issue was now that we are moving from the old ICAO licensing to a new A1, B1, and B2 licensing system. The holders of the older licenses, I hope there will be grandfather rights for their categories. And also I hope that the regulation will provide for, in case I get some limitations, there shall be a guidance material on how to remove these limitations on the license. Then the other issue is on the conversion of foreign licenses and the acceptability. I think the general trend is just to have an authority confirm that I hold the license from the other end, and then I come to Kenya and do an air law and maybe a human factors. I don't understand why a licensed guy would be forced to do a composite exam, because what will happen then, the maintenance organization who will give the approval to such a guy, there'll be a lot of delays in the certification of the aircrafts because they're waiting for the engineers to be approved, maybe when they fail the composite exam or any of the other exams. So that should be expedited. And then the other thing, I hope I'm not too quick, is at least we should move where the world is. I believe the Kenya government is an e-government. We have a lot of certain procedures like renewal of licenses can be made, an e-service. That is, we can apply it on the internet because the authority knows its a list of licensed engineers. So some of these services can be brought on the internet. And then there is one clarity which I would like this to be addressed. It's not in the current draft, but there was one regulation 128, which was seeking that approved organizations can appoint non-licensed individuals to carry out duties of licensed individuals, provided those individuals meet other regulations. And when you look at other regulations, it's for licensed engineers. So I believe, I'm aware, non-licensed people like in the NDT field, which are specialist areas, or workshop component maintenance, may sign for components under company approvals. But I would like clarity, because if this is allowed, then operators or approved organizations will just employ one engineer and give the other staff licensing authority under their non-licensed, that regulation 128(5)(b). Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Douglas. I think we've had you. My would be able to respond to the questions that you have put across. Allow Umutu to take the questions.
Oh, thank you, Douglas. We've heard your questions. We actually tried to address them, but maybe you are not online. On the first issue of the hot air balloon, we don't have a category of license specifically for hot air balloon. Currently, we have category B1 and B2. So for you to release balloon, you may undergo some specific training recommended by the balloon manufacturer, and then you get the approval for signing the balloons. On category C, as you rightly put it, is not a category of a license. Category C is a privilege extended to a category B1 and B2 licensed engineers by an AMO. So category C in itself is not a license. On holders of current license, we are aware that we have various engineers with the license that cannot be called B1 or B2. For example, if you are avionics engineer, currently you have category X instrument, X electrical, X autopilot, X campus, and radio, category I. So if you don't meet the requirement of B2 as a whole, we'll convert your license to a B2 with a limitation. So that if you have category X electrical, we'll give you B2, but limited to electrical tasks in the aircraft. And then we also identify what are the modules that you're required to cover so that you fully qualify for full B2 license. On the composite exams and conversion, I think you're confusing two things. We have validation and conversion. We only issue composite exams on conversion. On validation, we only do air law. But in the current proposed regulation, we have excluded air law for engineers who are applying for new aircrafts or to sign aircraft that is a prototype to the industry in Kenya. So we don't need to, for example, you're buying an aircraft from abroad and you want engineers who are there to sign for you the aircraft. We may not require them to come to Kenya to do air law and go back. So there's a provision that allows somebody who is out there, maybe the aircraft is maybe AOG or a new type, we can give validation for that particular purpose without doing air law. That is currently in the new proposal. However, the normal procedure for validation is well expounded and conversion. So for conversion, you'll have to do knowledge test and skill test. And just after confirming from the foreign authority the validity of your license. We have received your comment on the renewal of license to be an e-service. That's a good recommendation. We'll look at it as the authority. Now, on the issue of appointing non-licensed individuals, we don't mean appointing people who are coming to work on the aircraft. You know, there's some tasks that may not require license. For example, welding or painting, NDT. Those are special tasks. And we have also given a provision on how we issue approval for such tasks. However, an AMO can appoint another organization that's not approved to do, for example, welding, but under the quality procedures of that particular AMO. So that is well taken care of. I hope your concerns are addressed.
Okay, thank you, Mutu. I think the questions have been addressed. I can see Douglas has responded in the affirmative that his questions have been addressed. Any other person who might have a question or a desire to make an intervention, you're welcome to do that. We have another few minutes before we can call a close on the airworthiness regulations. So I'll allow the manager airworthiness, Mary Keter, to make some summary remarks, as I have. So I can see Joseph Maina indicating that his earlier question has not been responded to. Joseph, are you willing to get? Can we give you the platform so that you can make an intervention, probably, if your question was missed? I can see Ali Omar is also seeking a response to his question. I think your question was regarding Regulation 7.1, which talked about inclusion of a lessee operator as one of the people can with the strength to apply. I think my colleagues in Mary Keter will look at that again. She'll get back to you, even as we just look down for Joseph Miner's question. He was talking about CRS maintenance release required as a document after 100 hours annual inspection. Is it required to be kept as a record and carried aboard the aircraft? So I think those two questions, Mary, is it Mary or Timothy will respond? Mary, you can have the stage and respond to those two questions.
Thank you, Lawrence, and also Joseph Maina. We have seen your question that on the question pen you're asking, is a CRS stroke maintenance release required as a document after 100-hour stroke annual inspection? Is it required to be kept as a record and carried on board an aircraft? Now, initially we had a certificate of release to service, class 1, class 2, and class 3. So this maintenance release, if we talk about class 1, is normally with reference to major modifications and scheduled inspections. So this maintenance release, if it's under the class 1 type, then you will still need it under 100-hour or annual inspection, because these are scheduled maintenance that you must accomplish on the aircraft. Now, is it required to be kept as a record? Yes, you need a record. And currently we talk about certificate of release to service having 2 copies, one on board the aircraft and one kept in the technical library or any other area that is acceptable to the authority. And then that is now one carried on board and one kept in record. And then item number 2 from Joseph Maina, I think you have written continuation, ops, operation of aircraft for CAT, that is CAT regulation 10, sub-regulation 2, and regulation 11, sub 1, 2, 3, in tandem with airworthiness regulation 39, 1, 2, are conflicting. In the latter, it's somewhat not required to be kept, carried as a record, but in the latter, it's required. Now, AOC, that is Operation of Aircraft Regulation number 10, is normally documents to be carried on board. So maybe as per your comment, you say it is not required and to be kept in record. I think we will need to check this one on the regulation specifically, and then Joseph for sure will get back to you to make sure that these 3 regulations cited here are not conflicting. So we will check on that one. Ali Omar, Ali Omar, that is regulation 23, sub-regulation 1. Kindly shed light on security sensitive information related with airworthiness. Is it possible to define the details of information? Yes, the details of this information has already been given to us by ICAO under DOC 9760, and we have only mentioned this statement in the regulation because the sensitive information have been listed, and they're about 5 pages. So this, we will adopt them under a technical guidance material. This is advisory circular to the industry, and we will be explicit on each of those security information listing that have been put there. So this one we will share with you, but we have already introduced it in the regulation. Then we have Tony Malala, that is on personnel licensing regulation 23, sub-regulation 1D for validation. You say 4 years exercising the privileges of the foreign license are too many and may be considered as punitive. Tony, this is not punitive, but your recommendation is taken in and comment because we have looked at these are validations, and these validations are just a stopgap to use it as a measure to facilitate the industry to ensure that they have licensed and properly rated engineers to be able to be trained and to sign off the aircraft. So as a stopgap, it means when you are validating, you need to have been somebody who already has qualified from whichever state the license has been issued from, so that 4 years doesn't look so much looking at this requirement holistically. Who are these people validating their licenses? They could be local Kenyans who hold foreign licenses. They could be foreigners who have licenses issued by their foreign states. So we look at 4 years in our recommendation. However, your comment is taken and we will relook at it and hopefully share with you at the end of the process what we have finally come up with. There is Douglas Karoki, the syllabus that is route to becoming a qualified engineer. What is the fate for trainees who might take an approved apprenticeship or holder of rated diploma in electrical or mechanical engineering? The guidance document only accepts aviation engineering diploma and graduate mechanic or electrical degrees. I think Douglas, in these regulations, that is personnel licensing, not in airworthiness, which we talked about on Monday morning, that we have 3 groups that we will accept as KCA as recommended in that regulation. One of them, we will have people who have come from an approved training organization. Then it means when you come out from an approved training organization, do you hold a certificate? Do you hold a diploma? Do you hold a degree? Then these are questions to be answered in the TGM. The second group of people are those people who have never gone to anybody's school, but these are engineers we have recognized who worked in the industry for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. Then they would also have an opportunity to be licensed aircraft maintenance engineers. Again, we have to give guidance to the industry how to treat such. And the third group of people is where the authority may accept somebody to sit for these examinations from an institution acceptable to the authority. This is not an approved training organization. So we have those 3 groups. It means if you are from an ATO, we will be specific. Are we talking of a certificate, a diploma, or a degree, and in which particular trades? But what KCA would be looking at mostly is the syllabus that has already been posted in personnel licensing regulation schedule, so that even if you have a degree, have you completed the levels and the activities that have been posted in the syllabus? if you have a certificate, then that is what we would be looking at. So thank you for your input. We will also review and revert. Now, there is a question from Wesley Kirui. Is the 24-month certificate of airworthiness validity a prerequisite for non-expiry certificate of airworthiness finally, or they can be handled separately and or concurrently? Currently, they will be handled separately because KCA has not established the CAMOs, which we have actually started looking at that part, so that in the near future, we hope that when we adopt the CAMO system, then we will go to the non-expiry type of period of validity. But for now, it will be handled as a standalone as 24 months, the way we have all done, always the 12-month period of validity of those certificates. Okay, then there is Samson Mwatate, touching on the application stroke renewal of COV. Kindly review the requirements for campus wing requirement as is the standard with other regulation. Thank you, Samson. This one we have noted over time, and for sure we will look at the requirements for campus wing as opposed to requiring you to do it annually. Then we have looked at this and we will guide you also on an advisory circular that is under renewal and issuance of certificate of airworthiness applications. Thank you. Now, there is Tony Malala. Is there any specific reason that the validation certificate has to be time capped at 12 months without possibility of renewal? Does this mean upon getting a validation certificate, one is obliged to either convert it or cease to perform their duties upon lapse of the 12 months? Tony, I think this one we have handled severally. We've discussed a lot on validations, that it is just a stopgap. It was initially 6 months, but we propose that 1 year is good enough for the engineer to consider converting the license, because of course, once it's lapsed, the regulation doesn't give an opportunity to request for renewal. And we all know that the privileges attached to this validation certificate will also cease to be active once it lapses. So I think that is clear, Tony. And Matthias Chesoli, will there be review of requirements for annual KCA inspections needed for issue of COV once the 24 months requirement is considered, including A and B notices? Matthias, yes, KCAA, with the coming out of 2021 regulations, we are actually now preparing for this kind of amendments. We have even started working on these documents so that any changes that will come in the TGMs, including A and B notices, we will share with the industry on those topics that we have discussed and where there are changes. Okay, thank you. I give the floor to our moderator, Mr. Amkono, to also continue with the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I think we've basically gone through most of the questions posted in the Ask Question box. I've just noted that Ali Omar had raised a question of us saying prescribed has been deleted in the definition, yet the word is still used in the law. I think just that's a legal drafting thing. We are trying to shift away from prescribing to specifying. So what you will see in most of our regulations is as specified by the authority rather than as prescribed. That is just to recognizing the weight of the word prescribe versus the word specify. On the same strength, I can see Ali Omar would like to have the stage. So if you can activate your participate button, if you can click your participate button, you can be able to make your oral intervention. That then will consider Isaiah Nyaosis also would have an opportunity to speak. So Ali Omar, you have a minute or two to give us your intervention.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you, Madam Mary. I would like clarity on Regulation 4, the new regulation. We started in this regulation. We started by defining an aeronautical product, including engines and propellers. So, I would like clarity on Regulation 4.1. We talk about, on Regulation 4.1, we talk about no person shall operate an aircraft or apply for a registration of an aircraft in unless the aircraft and the aeronautical products there have been type certification from the state of design and production approval. Then on the Regulation 4.2, notwithstanding the requirements of Sub-Regulation 1, the authority may accept for the registration non-type certificated aircraft and aeronautical products. My question to the Airworthiness team is: we talk about registration. We talk about registration of aeronautical products. Is the authority going to register engines and propellers? Because we talked about aircraft and aeronautical products in a manner prescribed by the authority. We all understand propellers move, engine move. I would propose we just limit it to aircraft because that is what is registered. And for the other aeronautical products, they be left to, as they be treated as, components and sub-parts to the main aircraft. I would like Madam Mary to respond on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. We have heard your question. Let's allow Isaiah Nyaosi also to ask his question, then we can respond to all of them in one. Isaiah Nyaosi, I've activated your participate button. If you can click on your participate button, you'll be able to have the floor and ask your question. Isaiah, are you with us?
Yes,
Thank you.
this morning, my question is on renewal COA that now is going to be done after 24 months. Meaning, if I kept all my aircraft current, they will be in one calendar year. Now, what's going to happen in the year after? Like I'll renew my COAs in 2022, for example. Then 2023, I do not have any aircraft to do COA renewal. How will the authority stagger? Or how will I have if I have a fleet of 20 or even 50 aircraft? So that means 1 year, if renewal is done within maybe 2022, then 2023, I have no COA renewal. And now that brings a workload in one calendar year compared to the preceding one. How will the authority handle that? Thank you.
Thank you, Isaiah. So what we will now go to responses. We'll ask Madam Mary or one of the Airworthiness colleagues to address the questions raised by Ali Omar and Isaiah. You can take the floor now.
Okay, thank you, Ali Omar. I will start with you. The first question was about Airworthiness Regulation 4, Sub-Regulation 1, where you are concerned that the authority should remain to register the aircraft only and not the aeronautical product. If you look at that regulation, the authority talks about registration of an aircraft, but goes further ahead to expound that this aircraft that will be registered under Regulation 4, Sub-Regulation 1 must have type certificated aeronautical products. These are engine, propellers, and other components that fall in that category. And then the CAA has expanded and introduced Regulation 4, Sub-Regulation 2, where we are talking about the non-type certificated aircraft, so that this can bring separation between the initial requirements that we had in 2013, where we only talked about registering aircraft with type certificates. So what we are registering is aircraft only. We are not registering aeronautical products of those aircraft. So unless there is something which we are not reading properly, we will really appreciate for you to highlight, maybe even after this forum, we will appreciate. You are welcome. And then item number 2, that is question number 2, is from Isaiah Nyausi. You are talking about renewal of COV. Now, regardless of what period that ICAO recommends, whether it's a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period, or even a non-validity period or validity of COV, it is a requirement that aircraft must be maintained with reference to an approved maintenance program, meaning that all these aircraft at all time must be maintained, and to maintain a continued airworthiness for that aircraft. So whether we renew these certificates after 1 year or 2 years, there are those specific tasks that you must comply and accomplish for the aircraft to remain airworthy. Even with that, I know we have always guided the industry in the past. For the renewal of COV after 1 year, we would be looking for specific things that you are supposed to do annually. Now, KCA is reviewing its guidance so that we can also incorporate the changes that we have introduced for the 2 year period. What is it going to change? Things like surveillance will also be introduced, and active participation will also be expected by both the CAA and the industry working together to ensure that these aircraft are kept flying and kept operating while airworthy. So Isaiah CAA is going to amend the existing guidance material from the 1 year to 2 years. The differences will be introduced and we will also share with you. Thank you very much. So I think on the same notes concerning the 2 year period, we also have consideration for staggering of the COV application and renewals, because in the 2 year period, we will have different applicants coming on board at different times of the year. So there are many things that we are going to look at as a team, both ourselves and yourselves, to agree and to implement as one family. Thank you. Back to Lawrence Amkono.
Thank you very much, Mary. I can see Ali Omar would like to have a rejoinder. So I'll allow 2 minutes, Ali, just to make a rejoinder on what has been presented. You have the floor now. You can activate your to speak button.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Mary. I agree with Madam Mary. However, what we both agree is not what is written in the law right here. I would like her to move to also Regulation 3, Subregulation 2, Subregulation 1. The regulation prescribes the requirements for certification of aircraft and aeronautical products. You see, we can't ignore the fine print where we're talking about the authority certifying aircraft and aeronautical products. You know, we've added the word aeronautical products, and I understand, you know, it comes out like we are not treating the aeronautical products as part of the aircraft, but what is written in the fine print is subject to interpretation. And so long as it reads like me, from my point of view, if I see something written, certification of an aircraft and aeronautical products, if it says certification of an aircraft, it's a due process involving the aircraft and its components and its products. But if it's certification of aircraft and aeronautical product, it means this aeronautical product will be subject to a process the same way an aircraft is subject to the process. And you find some of us in the industry would want to have an engine that is loaned. It does not belong to us. It's a temporary arrangement. So what we want the law to cushion us and also to cushion the authority is every 2 minutes something happens, we have to run to the authority. Hey, we want to replace an engine. We want you to come and certify. We want you to come and certify the process. So, and I agree with Madam Mary that they don't intend to go to the nitty-gritties of the engines and these aeronautical products, but the way the fine print has been written, I would encourage the authority to look into the areas where it mentions aeronautical products, then look at what my point, the point I'm trying to raise, if it would make sense. Because the way it's written and the way we reviewed with our team, it came out clear that, you know, by introduction of the aeronautical products in the same line with the certification requirements of aircraft means that by law they are supposed to be certified as in, you know, as separate or as part, but would require input from the authority every now and then that changes happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll allow the Madam Mary Keter to just respond to what Ali Omar has said.
Yeah, thank you, Ali Omar. I think your sentiments, we have picked them correctly. And the title on that, we call the marginal notes, is Certification of Aircraft and Aeronautical Product. Now, certification in this case is not only confined to the Civil Aviation Authority of Kenya. Certification goes beyond Kenya because Kenya has accepted various airworthiness codes. One of them is FAA, that is in America, EASA, the European Union. We have accepted UKCA, we have accepted many others, meaning that this aircraft must have certification one way or the other. One certification that we would issue as Kenya CAA is registration process. For us to register an aircraft, then we say you must have also have installed on the aircraft certificated aeronautical products. And this necessarily doesn't have to be done by Kenya CAA, but because we have accepted the codes, then we would say, as long as you have a type certificated engine by FAA, that is the engine we will accept to register the aircraft with. So this title, marginal note, is not confined to the certification by Kenya CA only. It is certification by all other authorities that Kenya has accepted under airworthiness codes. I hope this is better explained, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will allow Tony Malala. I've activated your participate button. If you can just click on participate, you will be able to make your oral interventions. Tony, are you with us? Thank you.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. First and foremost, I'd just like to clarify, because we hadn't spoken anything, or you had mentioned from the previous sessions that a lot of the personnel licensing matters will be handled by Airworthiness. So that's why I wanted to just inform the audience. It's not a regurgitation of the various issues raised, but it's because there are some issues that I thought maybe I should maybe speak about them verbally. There are a number of issues, obviously, but then most of them are touching on personnel licensing issues. And I know we have spoken about the issue of validation, but one thing I just wanted to find out is, for instance, if one's validation certificate has already lapsed and that person had already begun a conversion process, because sometimes as a result of variations in scheduling of knowledge and skill tests, someone might miss an opportunity due to large numbers of applicants or any other unforeseen circumstances. So is the authority going to at least give some kind of, should I say, leniency in terms of the strictness of time because the issue of validation certificate lapsing for 12 months and not having the opportunity to renew it could end up being quite punitive to those people who have foreign licenses and they have them validated. That would be the first question. Another question is about, I think this has been discussed before, but I just wanted the airworthiness people to clarify on the variation in levels of knowledge for the various license categories and subcategories. That has not been addressed because there's no official existing study material and examination criteria. That would be the second query. My third query, touching on personnel licensing, is Regulation 127 of personnel licensing. There are no privileges exercised by the holder of a license without type rating. For category A license without type training should at least, this is the recommendation, that a license without type training should at least be able to issue maintenance release following task training for minor tasks, let's say a tire or a brake change, and company certification authorization for specific tasks. If category B1 and B2 license without type rating, I think they should be allowed to have company authorizations also for duplicate inspections after appropriate internal training within the privileges of the arm. I think that will be all for now.
Thank you, Tony. As we're coming to 10 o'clock, I invite my colleagues in Airworthiness to respond to your interventions, as well as address Matthias Chesoli's interventions and Wesley Kirui's interventions on Regulation 4.1. We're just about 15 minutes away from the break, so over to Alois. So even as Alois takes the stage, just to remind you that if you have any questions, any interventions that might be very pressing, and you probably did not get a response, or you would want to follow up on some of the issues we've come up with after this presentation, you can still email us. I'm going to just put that email address in the question box to allow us receive your suggestion for further processing. So any suggestions that you might have that you think or have emanated out of this engagement, we would be glad to receive that and be able to incorporate that in the revised drafts. Remember, after this stakeholder engagement, we will come up with a revised draft incorporating your reviews, and that is a continuous process. So Alois, you can respond to the questions by Tony, and as well as Matthias Chesoli and Wesley Kirui.
Thank you, Lawrence. Tony Malala, you've asked questions on licensing. The first one on validation. One thing we must remember is that validation in itself, the essence of validation is to achieve a stopgap measure to achieve a given requirement. For example, we are importing an aircraft that has no skill in the country. Then we get an experienced or qualified engineer abroad. Then for him to work on aircraft, we'll require a validation. Now, validation in itself is not a license. It's a certificate. And so for you to get a license, you'll require to convert. However, under the current regulation, validation is fixed at 6 months. But because of the repeat applications after expiry, we have considered to increase from 6 months to 12 months, at least to take care of the process of conversion for Kenyans who have validation certificates. Now, on the variation in knowledge, we are going to have in the current regulation, there's a schedule of syllabus on what is supposed to cover for various modules. So if you are doing, for example, B1 helicopters, they are relevant modules and they are on the schedule of the regulation. However, we may need to look at it, just like you said, and advise the industry accordingly. On the privileges on AML without type rating, we have also reviewed and introduced A ratings in our regulation. There's a category A that allows you to do maybe to release some tasks so long as you have a basic license. And there's a procedure for doing this, because after getting the license, B1 or B2, you can go through a short training in your AMO and be granted privileges to release, for example, tire change and some other small tasks. On duplicate inspection, just like the word goes, duplicate means two people with similar category and approval on rating are supposed to inspect the aircraft. So if you are working on the engine, the person who is working on the engine is supposed to be rated. The person who is doing duplicate inspection as well is supposed to be equivalent in ratings of that particular aircraft. That's when it's called a duplicate inspection. We cannot introduce a duplicate inspection by somebody with a lesser qualification. Otherwise, it would be a duplicate inspection. Matthias Chesoli, I can see you've asked, we can strengthen the Aviation Academy that will be meant to revolutionize the industry, meeting the demands and skill sets needed in our aviation sector. Yes, this is true. That is why we are introducing an ATO. There's an ATO regulations that's going to strengthen the academies and all the colleges that are offering aviation courses. Wilsley Kirui Regulation 4.1, no persons shall operate an aircraft or apply for registration of an aircraft in, consider deleting the last word in. Okay, that is noted, Bwana Kirui. Daudi Mukula, I agree with Matthias, if the authority can agree with the ATOs to have agreement with the AMOs for experience of the students so that by the time they are graduating, they have basic license. I think this may help the industry. Yes, Daudi Mukula, this is the way, this is the final destination we want to reach, because this is what is happening in other jurisdictions. Like the modules are always conducted by ATOs. However, in our environment, we don't have competent ATOs that have come up that we can delegate this role to. Others will be very happy if we get strong ATOs to administer the examinations, so that we only issue the license as authority. Or Ali Omar, Regulation 8.1 includes special airworthiness certificate. Okay, to include the Regulation 8.1, special airworthiness certificate. Okay, noted. Noted, Bwana Omar. Then I can see Omar want to comment on something issues. Maybe Lawrence.
Thank you a lot. I think we'll allow Omar an opportunity to also to make an intervention. Omar, I've activated your participate button. If you can click on it, you'll have a chance to make your verbal intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Bwana Lois. Just a comment on the regulation, this airworthiness regulation. I would like the airworthiness team to look into the regulation, because there's some areas where it still talks about restricted COV, and there's some areas that it says we've already said it's either a COV or a special COV. I don't know, maybe I would just encourage them, you just do control find and try and find these areas and harmonize them, so that I understand this could be a typographical error, but it's something that needs to be looked at, so that we can, the items you deleted, they have recurred somewhere else. Maybe it's Bwana Lois and the team, you can look into that. Zico, there's some of them in other areas, notwithstanding this matrix, because we are reviewing the matrix in the final draft, the one that is on the website. Please search on that one. You would see some areas that some of the deleted text, they just need to align the regulation so that it conforms to what is new, and what is old needs to be. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much, Ali Omar, for your comments. We are aware we've received similar comments from other participants about the errors and omissions, because we are currently addressing the matrix issue. As you rightfully put it, there are other sections which we might not have amended, where some other items are still appearing, reflecting the statements in the old regulation. So we will definitely go through the whole document and amend it accordingly. There's a question which you also stated about including the special airworthiness certificate. I believe it's related to the same item. The sections of regulation which we did not touch, talking about the different categories, might not have been adequately changed. So we will definitely change and reflect all the items. We noted there's some sections where still referring to certificate of release to service. Some other sections are still referring to the restricted COV. So we shall change it accordingly to whatever we have it in the new regulation. Thank you very much, Bonali.
Thank you very much. I think the comments from Ali were mostly addressing a lot of or a number of typographical errors that are part of the regulations. And I think that is part of the review, and it's good that you've picked them. We will continue to finalize and freshen up the document. Other than that, I see Atieno Onyango talking about personnel licensing renewal, personnel handling renewal of COV, maintenance of records, and continuing airworthiness management in general are an important part of keeping aircraft airworthy. Does CA have any plans to implementing formal recognition of such personnel, including minimum requirements? Probably what would be important here is to note that the regulations presented in airworthiness are regulations that transpose the provisions of airworthiness requirement, the annex on airworthiness in Annex 8 and some of the components of Annex 6. And as such, probably it's a good suggestion. We'll take it on board and we will find a way of assessing and appreciating the part being played by this personnel, and find a way of recognition of them, of this personnel. Somebody's asking about advice on ST notices review and update. And then we're also having regulation 17 to let's define certificate for crew. I suggest OPC check. A good number of suggestion from Ali is welcome. This is a suggestion that would directly go into the regulation. It is it's duly noted. I don't know whether my colleagues, any one of us, is ready to respond to the question. I think Sami Gishuki, you'll get a response being typed in by one of our colleagues so that we just manage time. We would like to see if we can be able to take a 15 minutes break before coming back for the next session, which is on approved maintenance organization. So closely linked, but not the same. I think we have been able to address the questions that have been posted. those that have been asked orally and those that were sent to us before this engagement. The suggestions and propositions that have been posted in the question button, as well as the ones that were given to us orally and those that were sent to us earlier, will also find expression in the subsequent drafts that we will develop out of this engagement, and those drafts will also be presented to you as stakeholders, just for us to have that closure and understanding of your propositions and how we handle the same going forward. So without further ado, I would like to call an end to the airworthiness session. It has been 2 hours. We've been doing this from 8:15 in the morning. It's just coming close to 10 minutes past 10. I can see Tony wants the floor. Tony, we're almost running out of time, but allow this one also. You can have the floor to ask your question. However, do not hesitate to send us an email on any question that you might not have been able to ask during this session. So Tony, if you can activate your speak button, your participate button, you can be able to make your intervention.
No, good morning once again. My question will touch one more time on the personnel licensing, and particularly on the foreign licenses and 4 years exercising privileges. Regulation 23, sub-regulation 1D says that an applicant has to have a minimum of 4 years experience exercising the privileges of the foreign license. Now, the critical thing here is it kind of locks out local people from getting foreign licenses, or rather restricting any Kenyans from wanting to get qualifications from or licenses that are foreign. Because if someone is domiciled here in Kenya and for any reason, and I believe that there shouldn't be any restriction, they want to go and maybe acquire, let's say, a license from Macau, China, or from India, based on the experience that they've gained here. How are they going to get exercising privileges of 4 years on that foreign license? Are you saying that the people who are here in Kenya should only seek licenses that are Kenyan? Because I believe people should be given the to choose where they'd like to get the training, even if it is from a foreign license in, let's say, Uganda or Tanzania. How are they going to get then prove that they have exercising privileges for 4 years if they've decided to get a foreign license from a different state? Don't you think that it gives, it kind of, and I understand the issue about the stopgap, but how is someone going to get 4 years of exercising privileges from a foreign license if that person has acquired that license while based on the experience working here? I just wanted to find out if there can be some clarity on that.
And after that, then Mary Keteri will make the final remarks for this session as we call it off and prepare for the next session.
Thank you, Tony. Now, on the conversion of a foreign license, there are 2 elements: conversion of a basic license, either B1 or B2, and conversion of a basic license including rating. Where now we are including rating, we must have demonstration of experience on that particular rating. We may not require demonstration of experience on a basic license. So when you convert a basic license without rating, we don't need 4 years. But when you want to give you privilege now to sign the equivalent, the equivalent, then we may require you to show the experience. On validation, like you said, is a stopgap measure that is not supposed to be exercised in eternity. However, even in the validation, for us to allow you to sign our aircrafts in Kenya, registered in Kenya, you must also demonstrate experience that the rating that you've had, you have exercised it in the foreign country where you are. Otherwise, we have received some requests for validation and there's no demonstration at all of exercising that particular rating in the license. Now, how do you check that somebody has got 4 years in the exercising the privilege? When you are endorsing, when the type is endorsed on your license, there's always a date. In that particular, the date of endorsement will show that it was endorsed this particular time. And then also, we also need probably experience or evidence of either employment or exercising that particular privilege. Because you remember, even us in Kenya, if you don't exercise your license privileges for a given time, the license becomes invalid. So we should apply the same even to foreign licenses. I hope that's addressed. On Karoki, I can see you are asking what regulation guides stockists or vendors of aircraft parts that are not engineers, engines or propellers. Parts like consumables, sealants, tooling of general nature, like lifting equipment. For stockists, we have a procedure of qualifying stockists who are supposed to be to follow a 5-phase process for you to be qualified as a stockist. So there's a guidance material that we have, but can also be reviewed. Tony Malala, I think that should be made clear in the regulations that a basic license does not require the 4 years exercise experience to avoid ambiguity. Yes, Malala, that is noted. We don't need a demonstration of experience to convert a basic license. If there's rating, then perhaps it can apply, but for foreign license without a rating, then no experience. Yeah, this is what the regulation means or says, that you don't need experience to demonstrate for converting basic licenses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alois. I think as we come to the end, we'll invite the manager Airworthiness, Mary Keter, to make her concluding remarks. And like I said, please do not hesitate to email us any additional comments that you might have or you might desire us to include in the regulations. We are still in the consultation process. We will be able to consider them if they're emailed to us for inclusion. So, Madam Mary Keter, you'll conclude the remarks for this session before we take a 10 minutes break and reconvene at exactly 10:30 to consider the draft Civil Aviation Approved Maintenance Organization regulations.
Thank you, our moderator, that is Mr. Amukono. We want also to thank the entire industry and the stakeholders for participating today in this forum to discuss airworthiness regulations. We thank you for the questions that we have received, both on Facebook and on the question pen, and those that we received on email and on SMS. Thank you very much. We want to assure you that your input to this regulation is taken positively, and we will sit as a team from KCAA side, and then we will share with you our final submissions before we pass these documents for final approval. And thank you so much. We will see you again in the next session, that is for approved maintenance organization regulations. Thank you so much and all the best.